Reality Transurfing. Chapter 6. The Flow of Variations. Where do premonitions, intuition, prophecies, and sudden discoveries come from? And what about great masterpieces of art? Is it really true that the human mind creates these things from nothing? The flow of variations is a magnificent gift for the mind, but most people have no idea it even exists. And what about omens? Why do they work? When you move with the flow, the world itself comes out to meet you, the information field. The space of variations is an information field, an energy matrix, a kind of blueprint that describes what can happen and how it can happen. When energy aligns with a specific part of this matrix, it illuminates that section, and the scenario becomes real, manifesting in the physical world. But here's the big question. Can we access this information while it's still unrealized, before it becomes physical? In other words, can we see the future? Actually, we do this all the time. Our conscious mind doesn't know how to access the space of variations, but the subconscious mind does. That's exactly where premonitions, intuition, sudden insights, prophecies, discoveries, and masterpieces of art come from. Information flows into our consciousness in two ways, either from the outside world, through external events, or from the subconscious, through intuition. The data in the information field is, in a sense, pure truth, free from any distortion or interpretation. But once that truth passes through the filter of the mind, it becomes an interpretation. It turns into what we call knowledge. Every living being interprets truth differently. A chicken, for example, perceives the world very differently from a human. Even two people can perceive the same event in completely different ways. In this sense, knowledge is simply a distorted version of the truth. The information field contains complex energy structures that govern how matter moves according to certain laws. First, this data is received by the subconscious, what we often call the soul. Then, the conscious mind translates it into words, symbols, or images. That's how discoveries happen, how new ideas, music, works of art, and inventions emerge. This process also explains intuition and premonitions. This might sound surprising, even unsettling. Does it mean the mind can't create anything truly new? That it only receives information from the field? Well, not exactly. The mind can rearrange familiar things to create something seemingly new, like building a new house from old bricks. But when it comes to something entirely new, something that cannot be made from existing parts, the mind alone isn't enough.
Groundbreaking scientific discoveries rarely come from logic. They arrive as sudden flashes of insight, as if out of nowhere. The same goes for great inventions. Beautiful music isn't just a clever arrangement of notes. It often feels like it arrives by itself. Masterpieces of art aren't simply the result of technical skill. They come from inspiration, from something beyond technique. Even technically perfect art doesn't always become a masterpiece. True art, whether a painting, a song, or poetry, moves the soul because it comes from beyond the mind. Inspired art, deep insight, and sudden enlightenment have nothing to do with the rational mind. It's only later that the mind tries to own these creations. For example, the mind can replicate an old masterpiece, but it cannot create a new one from nothing. The mind simply analyzes the data received by the subconscious from the information field, then expresses it as a melody, a painting, a poem, a scientific formula, or even a diagram. We still don't fully understand how the subconscious accesses the information field, but we can observe it happening. Clairvoyance or sixth sense is one such example. the ability to perceive events that happened in the past, that are happening somewhere else, or that will happen in the future. Science calls these paranormal phenomena because their mechanism isn't understood. But just because we can't explain something doesn't mean it isn't real. Some people can tune into the information field so clearly, it's as if they're watching real events unfold before their eyes. They can align themselves with a specific sector of the space of variations, one that has already materialized. For example, a clairvoyant trying to locate a missing person might use a photo or an object that belonged to them. Even law enforcement sometimes consults such people. Of course, not everyone sees things clearly, and mistakes happen. There are two main reasons for this. First, clairvoyants might tune into a sector that will never materialize. Some sectors are nearly identical in appearance, but only one will play out. Second, the clairvoyant's own mind can distort the information. Ancient prophets, for example, often misinterpreted strange visions of the future because they filtered them through their own limited knowledge. This is why some prophecies are imprecise. Whether you believe in all this is up to you. Remember, transurfing is just a model. It's not meant to describe the exact structure of reality. Instead, it's a tool, a way to use the hidden laws of the world for your own benefit. Transurfing doesn't claim to be the absolute truth. It's simply a perspective, a way to work with reality,